in the horror genre. I'm your host, Nicole, and it's time to share another dark tale.
Welcome back, weirdos. We're here to celebrate Women in Horror Month, and this year we're doing that with a discussion of our favorite female killers in film. And I am very happy to be joined once again by not just friends, but the best friends of the pod, Sunny and Natalie. Hey, ladies, thanks for being here.
What's up? Hello.
So before we dive into our specific personal favorites, I want to talk a little bit about why we are covering this topic. Well, first of all, we're covering this topic because I did a little poll on my Instagram asking people of a few topics, what do you want to hear about? And female killers was far and away the most popular one. So I was like, okay, this is something people are interested in. Let's do it. So what do you guys think makes female killers interesting, maybe even more interesting than their male counterparts?
I guess I'll kick it off. So
do it.
I guess if we're going to get technical, I think a lot of it is based on just what we already kind of see in the news. I mean, sadly, I think I looked up the statistics today. I think globally, about 96% of violent crimes committed are by men. So when you see a female killer pop up in any sort of narrative, you automatically have everyone's attention, right? I think women are perceived as mothers, caretakers, and lovers. Mm-hmm. So when you see a woman act out of, what society deems as normal character for a female role, you're always going to grab someone's attention because they're acting so out of character. And I think that the specific types of murders that they commit are a little bit more attuned to a woman experience. Again, a lot of what you hear about is centered around revenge killings based on aggravation with their spouse, or unfortunately you also hear a lot about mothers taking the lives of their children. So. Mm-hmm. Which again is completely out of character from what we would think a normal, female role would be.
Right. What about you, Natalie? Any thoughts?
I think, also sorry that I sound so low today. I'm stuffy.
Oh.
But I think that a lot of it comes down to motivation. Weirdly enough, if somebody pitches a movie to me about a male killer who's just quote psychotic or a maniac and doesn't necessarily have any notable motivations, I don't question it as much as if I would a woman. It always feels like there has to be some kind of a motivation there. A lot of times, like Sunny said, it tends to be very tied to gender, like a need or a revenge or a jealousy type bit, which I think feeds off the stereotypes that society gives women. But yeah, I would say motivation tends to be where I get drawn in as far as female killers.
Yeah, I think everything you guys said is spot on, but also being a female watching female killers, I think is always really interesting because, of course, as a female, you identify with it in a different way. I feel like a lot of times you either think, wow, I've had that emotion or I've had that thought, or you're like, oh, wow, where is she coming from with that? So I feel like just being a female watching a female killer is also just a different lens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So some of the common themes as I was just sort of running down the list of, notable and prominent female killers, I was noticing a few common themes, and a few of those, just a few, there are lots, but ones that stood out to me were killing on behalf of a lover, a mental break, revenge, which can cover a lot of things, and protecting their territory and just simply living their natural life cycle. What else did you guys see as common themes?
For me, I saw, at least in the ones that I had chosen, it came down to a need for whatever reason, and we'll get into that later. But a need, a lot of revenge, and trauma.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp. A lot of it seemed like taking back power. That seemed to be kind of a centralized theme, especially in the ones that I know that we all kind of covered individually. Yeah, that was a big motivator, which definitely want to dive deeper into that.
Awesome. So before we get into our personal favorites, I just wanted to like run down a quick little list of some of the ones that have been popular throughout, our modern times in cinema, and ones that have stood out to me. Again, this is not a comprehensive list. This is just a quick little list of greatest hits. So we have Carrie White from Carrie, Pamela Voorhees from Friday the 13th, Angela from Sleepaway Camp, the Queen in Aliens,
Love.
Mrs. Loomis in Scream 2, Brenda Bates in Urban Legend, Asami in Audition, Ginger from Ginger Snaps, Samara from The Ring, Mary Shaw from Dead Silence, Jennifer from Jennifer's Body. So those are all interesting characters that cover a wide range of backgrounds, motivations, results.
For
so
sure.
Let's get into our personal choices. And just for the benefit of the listeners out there, what we are going to do is we're each going to give our 3 kind of like top favorite female killers. And 2 of them are kind of like honorable mentions. And then we have like the one favorite that we're really going to dive into. So, Natalie, kick us off with your 3rd choice.
Number 3, Jennifer's Body.
Oh, yeah.
I love Jennifer's Body. It's very dated because it was in 2009, so lots of MySpace and weird choices as far as the script. But it's a great story. It is kind of the perfect rape revenge story in a way. But yeah, Jennifer's Body for number 3.
Also directed by a female, Karen Kusama.
And written by a female, Diablo Cody.
Yes, so bonus points.
I was watching clips actually about it and like about the actors talking with regards to the movie, and they had said that I think it was Megan Fox said that this movie is really fun because it does tend to pick at how women are perceived as always like competing against each other, even like best friends, and even in the weirdest ways. So things to think about.
Sunny, your turn. 3rd choice.
I even had a hard time putting this at 3rd, but it has to be Carrie. Carrie, I think that was the first, I guess, female killer movie that I can remember, to date. It just has every element that I absolutely love. It's got a little bit of like tongue-in-cheek conversation about religion, telekinesis, which to me, it's like, I just think that is so cool. Revenge, obviously, love a good revenge story. Hints of witchcraft, and then just very violently powerful women. And then like, I don't know, just especially when you're that young and you see this movie, something about it, especially if you grew up like a dorky art kid like me.
Yeah.
I don't know. In a deep, dark like place, everyone wants their Carrie moment,
Yeah. Oh, and Sissy Spacek is just like so good and
So
relatable.
perfect. Yeah, for that role. And I also love the backstory behind it about how that wasn't really intended to be, a feminist story, I guess, but it kind of ended up being that way, according to Stephen King, or Stephen King's wife, right?
Yeah, well, he was going to toss it out. He was writing it, and he was like, this is garbage. And his wife literally dug it out of the garbage pail and was like, this is good. You need to keep working on it.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
That's incredible. Yeah, well, definitely one of my top favorites.
Awesome. So I had also had a hard time just in general picking 3, like, because the more research I did, the more I was like, oh, this one's good, this one's good, this one's good. But my 3rd choice is going to be Julia from Hellraiser.
Brilliant.
And I don't know. I remember the first time I saw this movie, just sort of like, I just sort of hate her and love her at the same time. I mean, she's just this like beautiful, composed woman, but there's just so much going on underneath. And when she is, has the possibility of being reunited with this man that she was just obsessed with. I mean, she just goes all in and becomes the Black Widow, luring men back into her creepy attic.
Super high.
Yeah.
Vibes with like her allure also, which was really fun.
Yeah, and I also see like a little bit of, I mean, I wouldn't call Hellraiser a slasher, but it's sort of, I mean, it's not really in one genre, but it's kind of in that, came out in 87, so it's in that kind of world of slashers. And so I feel a little bit of Mrs. Voorhees Friday the 13th and Brenda Bates Urban Legend. Like I think there's a little bit, like they're all sort of swimming in the same pool. So I really, really like the way that it can all be sort of tied together.
Would you consider her a femme fatale, Nicole? Like, do you think some of these women kind of fit under that umbrella term, even though it's
I would say so.
Genre? Okay,
I would say so. Yeah.
Just something that came up like in the back of my mind when I was watching this. I was like, so is this really like a horror movie? I mean, can you consider femme fatale like horror? Like, is it
100%?
It had a, you know what I mean though, because it had like a kind of a completely different narrative, like back in the day, like in like detective movies or whatever. But this is like a whole other level, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Quick plug: there is a comic. It's an Image comic called Fatale that deals with. It's essentially like a femme fatale narrative, like a noir, but put to Lovecraft type world, and it is wonderful. And it's like the perfect epitome of like femme fatale horror. It's very, very fun.
That's great.
Love it. Love it. All right, Natalie. Second choice.
Hey, so choice number 2, Happy Death Day. Which I was surprisingly delighted about. I used to work at a place where they would say, you know, always try for the surprise and delight. And when I came out of there, that's definitely what I felt like. I thought it was going to be like a super cheesy slasher, and I was totally fine if that was the case. But it was a lot of fun, and it wasn't what I expected at all. You think it's over, and then it's not over. And it's kind of the best part.
Love that. I actually have not seen Happy Death Day, but I've heard good things about it.
I didn't want to talk about who the actual killer was. There's a bunch of women in the movie, so it's hard to be like, oh, that's the only other one. But it's great. It's a very fun twist at the end.
Gotta love that. All right, Sunny, what is your second choice?
My second choice, not sure how conventional this is or not, but it was a newer one, so I kind of had to shout it out as being incredible, was Invisible Man.
Yes.
I mean, again, I don't know if we can I mean, depending on how you interpret the ending, but I mean, female who kills, I mean, she fits the mold at least well enough for me to like want to talk about this movie. I just love it because it takes the idea of gaslighting to a whole new level and like makes that a truly like horrific, terrifying, and also very frustrating experience. You really get the sense of frustration dealing with something like that through this movie. I mean, everybody that she tries to reach out to either thinks that she's crazy or puts it back on her. And I'm really happy that someone was able to, or that they were able to kind of recreate that feeling, you know, through that movie. I don't know. And I also love that at the very end, I mean, you empathize with her and you're happy that, you know, she kind of had her moment, but there's also like, you're a little bit afraid of her too. She has this kind of like, you know, someone who was completely victimized. You're like, oh my gosh, you know, she has this, this new like enlightened sense of, you know, power. But that was
like what's she gonna do now? Like is she gonna just like live her quiet life or what?
Yeah. So oh my, I was just surprised, I mean, at how much I loved it. I really wasn't sure, but man, after seeing it, it's one of my top favorites now for sure.
It's awesome.
Okay, so my second choice, I kind of like waffled back and forth for my first and second choice. But I am going to throw it out to our girl Annie Wilkes from Misery, because I don't know if there's ever been a more unsettling woman on film than Annie Wilkes, and in the book as well. If you like the movie and you haven't read the book, I definitely would recommend it because it's different but so good. Something about her, even though she's clearly unbalanced, and we don't know exactly what that is. They don't ever clearly define like why that is, but she has these moments of sweetness. And even though, you know, she's off, you can kind of see maybe the person she used to be. And so it's all the more unsettling when she just shows up at his bed in the middle of the night looking deranged.
I watched Misery for this podcast because you'd mentioned that you were teetering between those two. I'd never seen it. she is so unsettling.
Right?
I think, so when we first saw it, she comes off as just like, something's off. And I think that is tied to the idea of like anyone who's super tied up in like purity culture or like a very, very prudish person. Something just always, for me anyway, something always feels off. Like this person,
Like they have a mask on.
something's wrong. Yeah. like they are prohibiting themselves from experiencing this part of life. And wanting anybody else to experience it, and that just leads to like a bad road. And then she had her fits, and I'm like, man, she's not all right.
Well, and I think part of it too in the film is that Paul Sheldon is played by James Caan, who is this large, intimidating man.
Mm-hmm.
And, if it would have been like somebody that was smaller in stature or somebody that we hadn't seen in gangster movies, like I think it wouldn't have been quite as intimidating. But it's like, oh my gosh, like Jimmy Caan is this big, like tough guy. And this little dowdy woman has like got his number and there's nothing he can do. And that last scene when they're physically fighting each other, I mean, you feel like they are equally matched for sure.
100%. She's stocky, dude. Like young Kathy Bates is a force. Truly a force. Yeah, I had no idea. Super
and
cool.
She won the Academy Award for that role, so props to her. Wow. She did, yeah.
Best Actress?
Best Actress, and that was her first major film role. She had done like some stage and stuff, but that was her first major film role, and she knocked it out of the park.
Dang, that's rad. I had no idea.
Yep. Okay, time for our favorites. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about when we first saw this movie, why this particular character sticks out to you, and also who the director is. Let's give some credit on these. So Natalie, what's your favorite?
So kind of unconventional, but I actually chose Under the Skin, which was from 2013, and the director is Jonathan Glazer. I looked him up. I don't think he's really done much else. It's kind of like a standalone feature, which is a shame. But yeah, the character in this that I'll be referring to is the female who's played by Scarlett Johansson. And that's how she's billed.
Love it.
What a bizarro movie.
Yeah. Oh my God. So crazy.
Dude, so this movie came out in 2013 and
ahead of its time.
Super ahead of its time. So AJ and I were we were just now getting into like kind of like art horror movies, and we had began to frequent the Tampa Theater a lot. Because they tend to play a lot of independent films there. And I think the only A24 movie that we had seen, or really that had come out that we had seen up until then, was like Spring Breakers. And A24 wasn't really known for like the craft like they are now as far as what they're choosing to produce. This movie is pinnacle A24 horror.
Yes.
In that, I mean, like the story is relatively basic. It's almost like a parable of a story that is set in this bizarre scenario, just this weird world. So I'm assuming, and this is all assumption, that the female is an alien paired with these, I call them the bike men.
Yeah.
All the motorcycle men who kind of, nobody talks really, tell her where to go, tell her, quote unquote, what's expected of her. And so she is in a van, very like creepy uncle style, in a van, scouring the streets of, I think, Scotland, just looking for prey. And I say it that way because that is the optimal term. When she gets into the town, she immediately goes, buys a fur coat, is very, like, the imagery is very on the nose. She's in this van, she's looking for prey, she's looking for loners, and they're always men. And then she brings them back to wherever she's staying, and the minute they go in to that abode, they are immediately met with a very spoopy soundtrack.
Yes.
Shining-esque.
Yes, very goblin-y. She's walking into this void, for lack of a better word, and slowly undressing as she walks. And the men are so infatuated with her that they follow her, and like most of them are very quick to strip down as well. And if you've ever seen like Stranger Things,
Yes.
yeah. When I first saw Stranger Things, I was like, what the hell? Whenever Eleven goes into the void to look for people, it's very much that same imagery, except that the floor isn't really made of water. It's almost mirrored. And then whenever the men do sink in, it's like a tar that they kind of fall into. This movie is terrifying for a number of reasons. I love the way that it was laid out. It starts off, she's very much the predator, looking for the prey at all costs to feed whatever it is that eats these men underneath the floor. And then as time goes on, she actually meets a man who it's the first time that she's felt some kind of emotion, whether that be pity or empathy or something, that she decides to let him go. And the roles kind of reverse. She goes very quickly from being a predator, not showing any kind of human emotion, just very cold, literally in a skin suit, to wondering, like, what is it that makes humans human? You know, like at the end becoming the prey to a hunter or to a predator. A couple of things about this movie that were the most disturbing to me was how cold she was. There's a scene where this family is at the beach, and so the wife goes in after the dog, and this is Scotland, right? So it's choppy as hell out there, okay?
And it's cold.
And it's cold, right? So she's looking at a man who's like body surfing or whatever, and she sees that he's alone, and she's like preying on him, and she waits for him to come ashore, but he sees his family on the other side. And this woman's chasing this dog who's gone out too far. And the dad goes to chase the mom who's gone out too far. And this man, who does not know this family, feels the innate urge to go try to help them, right? Surely he's thinking, I can swim better than them. Let me help them, whatever. And that, in that moment, shows his humanity, right? And like her inhumaneness to not feel anything or be any kind of like, no urge,
not even respond to that situation, not even an eyebrow raise.
She doesn't even you can tell she doesn't even understand what's happening.
She doesn't even understand what's happening. So he goes out, the parents die. This man comes back to shore. He's like completely out of it. She takes him, and you realize, because it's off screen at first, and you hear this cry, and you're like, what is that? And then you see that there's a baby on shore, and you're like, these parents died. This baby's there. She's grabbing this man. She's walking to her car. She doesn't even flinch to look at the baby. She doesn't even, there's no registration that this child will die. Nope. Right? She gets to the car. It cuts to bike man number one. Bike man number one goes back to the beach, and you think, surely he will do something about it. Absolutely not. He goes back to retrieve the towel that was left by victim number 3, and completely ignores the baby. And the baby is crying, and it killed me because it was not something that ever stuck out to me before. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, about to cry, how could you ever?
Cried.
How could you ever?
It was, and then that was brutal.
And then she's in the car later on in the movie, and you hear the radio, and it's like talking about how this family is missing, and the baby was 18 months old, and I'm like, God, Artie's 18 months old. Oh my God. And it's just heartbreaking, but honestly, brilliant way to show how much of an alien she is,
right?
In that scenario, as well as when she's walking and those women like scoop her up and they're like, woo, and they're all going to party.
And
the
she's
woo girls, like, bewildered, like, I don't understand what's happening type. Did a very good job of showing how confused and out of place she was. And then at the end, when she finally does understand really what it is to be human, it comes along with the sad reality of what it is to be a woman alone in the woods, right?
Yeah.
And she very quickly becomes the mouse that gets chased by the cat, and it's just really sad, but it's well played out.
Also, at the end, whenever the guy in the woods go, like, he just very sort of like, when he realizes that she's not a human, he just sort of like but he like sort of very calmly pours gasoline on her and sets her on fire. Like, he
very casually.
Like, he doesn't even seem like, oh my gosh, what is this thing?
Common sense would say run away and don't turn around.
Yeah. Like, I would think that would be the kind of thing that could like shatter you as a person if you saw this like basically monster, alien, whatever.
I think what it is also is the fact that he didn't, and he did turn around and he did choose to try to eliminate this creature's life, shows you where the power really lies at the end of the day.
Yep.
Like, common sense says, run away, don't look back, that thing could hurt you. But in his brain, he thought, like, surely I can do this thing to her. Surely that won't matter. Surely she can't hurt me.
It's entitlement and ego throughout the entire traumatic experience. Like, we really want to boil it down to that. Yeah.
Honestly.
In essence, yeah.
I also wanted to mention just like the visuals in this movie and how great they are. Specifically when you see the like meat on the conveyor belts.
Yes. Oh my God.
Like,
Yes.
Happening? Like you sort of know what's happening, but I was just like, this is like kind of feels like Phantasm a little bit. And
I was thinking like 2001 a little bit, like that space scene. What I thought was bananas, and I still have to look this up because I told myself I was going to look it up and I forgot to. Bananaramas was the scene in the beginning of the movie where she is confronted with this woman whose clothes she's going to steal. And they're in this space that is pure white. But they come off as being darkly lit. But you can still see like the brightness shine a light on them. It's very confusing to look at. And I'm super curious about how they filmed that, as well as how they filmed those void scenes, because of how pitch black it was, like how much CG was used, how, I don't know, just so many questions about how those scenes were filmed because of the practicality of it. So,
also brilliant casting, Scarlett Johansson. Like she was perfect. She was perfect.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So I actually looked up a lot of behind the scenes stuff for this movie because I was just like, oh, same thing. Like, how did they accomplish this? How did they do this? Okay. So originally this director had a budget, that was for a much just more involved movie with lots of CGI and like high production quality. And the original story was supposed to be a husband and wife alien. And the husband was originally cast as Brad Pitt.
Oh,
wow.
Yep. And they cut it for whatever reason. I think he actually went a completely different, because it's actually based off of like either a book or a short story.
Yeah.
And I think that he ended up going another direction. He ended up shooting it with lower end cameras. A lot of those actors in the very beginning, when she's picking up these men in her van, they're not actors.
They're not actors. Yeah.
Oh, love that.
A lot of it was filmed with hidden cameras, which I find very interesting.
The humanity
gender powered
is like that too.
Yeah,
it's where they're like just random people in the street that are passing by, and they kind of just layer the people in the street scene. I figured it had to be hidden cameras because of the angle at which they were filming people. A lot of them were like slightly tilted upwards. Like I think of the woman that's looking at the shop mirror, or the shop window, and she has no idea there's a camera there.
Yeah. And a lot of it, so that the areas that you're talking about that felt like really abysmal with like either, obviously there were many mirrors involved, and they filmed in like this, I don't know if it was like a warehouse setting, but just some stage setting, literally put a mirror on the ground, shot it. And then they shot it again with the actors walking into a pool of water. And then later, I think lightly retouched it with CGI, but barely any. I mean,
how smart.
Wow. Yeah, it was actually a pretty, they did a lot with a little bit from what I understood.
All right. Any final thoughts before we move on?
Just that.
On the note of females in or women in horror, I guess, that was, I also read behind the scenes, Scarlett Johansson's first fully nude scene, and no one made a big commotion about it because of the way that it was shot. I guess the way that they kind of like, because it was like full frontal nudity when she's inspecting her body and her skin and everything else, but it wasn't done in it
wasn't a sexual thing.
Right. Yeah.
It was very much like a discovery and a curiosity.
Yeah. Exactly. But you didn't hear it. Usually you hear buzz about that, and this one was not one of those. So.
Yeah, that was something I definitely noticed as well. I was like, oh wow. I was like, she's just completely naked a lot. And but it didn't seem like a big deal. It seemed very natural.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, very quickly. So sorry, I completely forgot to add this in. The gentleman, the deformed gentleman that she brings back with her, who kind of catches her off guard. What's really interesting, something really interesting that I thought, whenever she was bringing everybody else in, she never fully stripped down. Like, she was maybe in like a brassiere and jeans or something like that. And it wasn't until that guy that she realized like she needs to do more to attract him in, because he already has all of these walls built up.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, I didn't
He's
think about
sober.
that.
Everyone else was drunk.
Yeah.
And he goes to her and he says, "Are we dreaming? Are we in a dream?" You know, and she says,
And
"Yeah,
that
we're
little
dreaming."
cutaway with his hand and you see him pinch himself, that just like broke my heart.
By the way, that actor, like, that was not makeup.
No, that's him.
He actually has a deformity. Like, that was his real face.
It has something to do with the growth of tumors under the skin, right? Which is also kind of an interesting choice. Yeah.
My whole heart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I know.
Yeah, just that.
All right, now for something completely different, but no less depressing. Sunny, what is your favorite?
Well, I picked this one as my favorite for this topic specifically, but it is Monster. Monster by director Patty Jenkins, written and directed by Patty Jenkins, 2003. I think I saw this one in my my college years when all of my unhealthy like interest for serial killers and all this like just started blooming. And of course, she's a female serial killer. I was intrigued. She's also from Florida.
Yes,
I didn't know that.
Really?
When I knew barely anything about this movie.
Florida woman.
Yep.
Florida woman.
Florida woman. Quintessential. So I think this is my favorite because, I mean, you guys know I'm a true crime girl. So this was my excuse to kind of like link this into true crime. So she's a real female killer, right? So number one, you know, truth is scarier than fiction all day, every day. I also think that she is an interesting character to discuss because I have noticed in every single movie that we watch for our top three, all of them involved sexual assault, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I think it's a very interesting theme in a lot of women in horror genres. But this one in particular is interesting because while sexual assault is used as a means to justify a woman's like revenge, rampage, kill, murder, she actually used it as a means to justify why she killed. Not to say that that is not part of her background and part of, unfortunately, what made her who she is, but there was a lot of facts to back up the fact that her first victim, yes, more than likely he was tried for rape. I don't know if that he was actually convicted, so he did have that background, but the rest of them, they cannot prove it, and they're pretty sure that it was her in survival mode, you know, at that point. And I think a lot of it, I mean, one of her quotes was something like, and it does make you so sad because you see her, like, her as a person, and even in the movie, they portray it so well. Like, Charlize Theron, first of all, let's talk about that, how amazing of a job that she did. Her transformation into that character.
yes.
Mind-blowing, down to the hair flip, like everything she did, so on brand.
Another Academy Award winning performance for Best Actress.
Yes.
I was actually
Holla.
I don't know how I felt about Charlize Theron in this movie.
Really?
For a number of reasons. But I'm not saying she didn't do a good job. She did a great job in the role that she was given, 100%. I was kind of frustrated because I looked into it after the movie was over because some didn't sit right. And I feel like, so I watched her thank yous for the Academy Awards because I had seen that she had won the award for it. And she didn't mention this woman once during her award ceremony, which was really weird to me because the woman was still alive when they were filming this movie.
Oh, wow.
Which also I feel like, personally, part of it just felt really exploitive, which kind of adds a weird layer to it. I think because, I don't know if what I was reading was correct, but her girlfriend, like, that was portrayed in the movie, obviously the name was changed and stuff. And two of the police officers, like, sold her story to the media and, like, to people who were writing books and people who were writing movies. And she's literally rotting in jail waiting to be killed. Just feels off. You know what I mean?
That's why
Yeah.
she is the quintessential, I think, woman in horror, because if you're going to tie any sort of feminist criteria centered like motivation, it would be Eileen gets it. And I think that was like one of her last comments. I think her last recorded words were, "Thanks a lot, society, for railroading my ass."
I
And it was
saw
because
that.
a lot of them, used her
Yeah.
for books, movies, interviews, and she felt that she was being used her entire life.
It's so sad, man.
And never really gained anything from it. Everyone gained from her, but never for her. And that's why I say, like, I feel for her, and I mean, it's terrible, but based on the way that she had to grow up, she was a young mother, 14. Is what I mean when I say young. And she also was impregnated by her grandfather's, like, it was a family friend.
Jeez.
Grandfather raped her, brother raped her. She started trading sex basically for like cigarettes and money by the time she was 11 years old. So again, this is all this woman knew. She was surviving. And I think that after a certain point, she was just filled with so much hatred and resentment that she found that, I think it happened one time. And when she realized, I don't need to accept $30 for something that, I absolutely abhor at this point.
Yeah.
I can just take them for everything and leave no witnesses. And that's what she did. And I also think that it's interesting that, again, again, sexual assault is a really big motivator I've noticed in a lot of women in horror films, which I'm not quite sure how I feel about that personally. But I find Eileen interesting because she weaponizes it, and not necessarily in a truthful way, even though it has happened to her. The thing that, put her into prison was, pure revenge, pure, like, hate motivation and upbringing. But ultimately her defense for it, wasn't actually true. So I find that very, she's a very, like, conflicting, and it's very tough, I don't know, to kind of like think about these things and then think about like how she defended herself, in that context. It's very complex.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's super complex is the thing. I don't know, it was really heartbreaking, and like watching how the movie dealt with it, I thought was really cool, because I don't know, I felt really bad. Her friend in the movie, the guy, her only friend in the movie, when I saw him at the end anyway, try to tell her to like go out through the back, I was like, he knows something. He knows they're narcs. He knows. He really wants to save her. He really cares about her. But she can't see it. Like, and that's the thing about women, or not even women, just think about people that have like trauma, you know what I mean? And are, I don't think, like, apt mentally because of it, which is also a side note. I can't believe that she was actually killed, because she should have been flagged for being mentally unstable.
Yeah, that's another.
Welcome to Florida.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But yeah, just seeing how destructive people can be towards themselves, and to the point to where they don't see who their allies are. They just see the world is against them and I need to survive, is really heartbreaking.
But kind of the beautiful, weird thing about that is, at the end of the day, and this is why I say quintessential, like, feminist, like, women in horror story, the only person she found camaraderie and understanding through was another woman.
Yeah.
And he claimed to not, like, be gay when they first met, and had never really been with them. But at the end of the day, that's,
this person has seen what it's like to be in this position. And so I was looking at it, and I think it's either 1 in 5 or 1 in 3 women will be victims of a sexual assault in their lifetime. So it definitely makes sense that most of women in horror tend to be some kind of sexual assault victims, because of how many women in real life tend to be.
It's one of those just like universal themes. I think all women can relate to that, being in a dark parking lot or something, and just being like cautious and worried about, like, okay, like, something really bad could happen to me right now. So I think that might be one of the reasons why we see it, especially in works that are crafted by women.
Did your parents ever have that conversation with you guys? Like, don't drink from open cups at parties. If you're in a parking lot and you're by yourself, put your keys in between your hands and stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
My
to some
mom did, too.
extent, like whenever I first like graduated college, at my first job, had my first apartment, like my parents gave me mace to keep in my purse and
Right.
yeah, all that stuff.
And see, and that brings me back to, and I totally agree with, the reasoning behind why we see a lot of these things pop up, especially in women-directed films. My only criticism, I shouldn't even say that. This is just my devil's advocate point is, do women, like in terms of like sexual assault as a motivation for like reclaiming power, do women still need men in order to project power in a film narrative, even if it's taking back power in that sense?
No, I don't know that we're there as a society, to be honest. My immediate answer is no.
Well, I guess I just mean it in the sense of like we're still seeing it in a different capacity.
Oh, for sure.
We're seeing it as this woman was weak. She was in a well, we'll get to it, I guess, in a couple of these movies where, they're seen as weak. They're victims. Only after they kill a man do they kind of regain some sense of power.
That's a really good point.
So that's the only thing that I wonder about. And also just real quick on, I guess, like perpetuating like rape culture through some of these films. The only other devil's advocate point that I thought of was, everyone is familiar with Deliverance, right?
I've never seen Deliverance.
Oh. Really? Do you know why Deliverance became popular, Natalie?
No, I did not. Now I'm really nervous.
It was because of a pretty brutal rape scene in the movie.
Ooh.
And
man on man.
Yes, man on man.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So, and that really, not that the South, needed any help in this department, but it really affected the way that, a lot of us thought about that region because of this rape scene. And if that's the case, then what does that mean for women, in some of these movies where rape scenes are happening, So that, I don't know, just something to think.
Interesting theme, and this is a little off topic, but it's relevant, so I'll go there. But that's one of the things that I've heard talked about with slasher films and like the final girl, is that the final girl usually in the last act has to like take her power, right, and kill the big bad. And it's usually with something phallic, an axe, a knife, a chainsaw.
Yep.
And so that is baked into certainly not all horror, but the slasher genre, like for sure, which by the way, plug for Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. Yeah, if you haven't seen Leslie Vernon, like I feel like they point out these things, but also I think sort of like reclaim the story and kind of turn it into something else. So anyway, yeah.
That's why I love Jennifer's Body so much, though, is it plays with that, right? Because they're like, we need a virgin, and she reiterates like, yeah, I'm a virgin, thinking that it's going to keep her safe.
Yeah, she's and like, then, I'm not even a backdoor virgin,
right? Right, and then everything just backfires. Yeah, it's great.
All right, so my favorite one, which again, this one, as I thought about it, I've always loved this movie, but as I thought about it, I was like, is this really a female killer movie? Because I think she only kills a couple people, but I'm like, I guess it qualifies. She's not as much of a predator as Eileen or the female, but mine is Mary Mason in American Mary, which was directed by the Soska sisters, and it was released in 2012. I first saw this movie, I think it was in 2012, at a horror convention that the Soskas were at. And so I got to meet them at this convention, and I hadn't seen any of their movies yet, but I was super interested in American Mary. I was just drawn in by like the visuals of the trailer and stuff. And I just really related to these women. They're a set of twins, because they like look cool. They have great style. Everything I read about them, they seemed like really interesting people. And then when I met them, they were like super sweet. I was already jazzed to see their movie.
So cool.
Yeah. And so then when I saw the movie, I was just like captivated. And when it was over, I was just like, I want to watch it again right now. I just really fell in love with Mary.
She's great.
Yeah, I just it's another one of those like conflicted characters that you like want to be her friend, you know, you want to like see her make good choices.
Right.
And she just doesn't make good choices. So just a short rundown for people who have not seen it. It's about this super smart, promising, beautiful med student, Mary. And because she's training to be a surgeon, medical school is expensive and she doesn't have any money. So she's like, you can tell she's been waitressing or something and she's not getting shifts and she's not making money. So she's like, screw it. I look good. My body's nice. I'm going to strip. Like, that's the easiest way for me to make money. I'm just going to do it. And when she goes to have her like interview to be a stripper, you can tell there's shady business going on at the strip club and somebody is really badly beat up. And the guy who owns the strip club who's interviewing her is like, oh, you're training to be a surgeon? I'll give you $5,000 if you'll stitch this guy up and not say a word. So she's just introduced to this whole underground world, and through many twists and turns and interesting characters, she gets introduced to the world of body modification. She is invited to a hoity-toity party with a big group of professors, including her kind of like mentor professor who proceeds to roofie and rape her. And she ultimately ends up kidnapping him and performing involuntary body modifications on him and holding him captive. Eventually she kills him. It's a crazy movie. It's just a crazy, crazy movie. But Mary is great. Her friend Beatrice is great. Ruby Real Girl is great. I mean, you're just introduced to this cast of bizarre characters that can't be real, but like you're just here for it and you just buy it. One thing that I love about this movie is I love a good crushing ending. And I really, really admired that they went there and decided to kill her, because I think that was kind of like the only path kind of for her character as she went down this dark road. Yeah.
I agree. And they got so much flack for that.
No, I think it was the right choice.
But that last shot of her like laying in the pool of her own blood and her beautiful dress and her beautiful shoes.
Oh my gosh.
Like when she's reaching for the scissors and the pincers, I was like, this is going to be some like splayed out, beautiful overhead shot.
Yeah. And it's the beautiful like piano version of Ave Maria playing over it, which is great.
Have you guys ever heard of an anatomical Venus? Like the models that they used back in like Victorian days to like study anatomy and things like that. I feel like that whole scene was based on an anatomical Venus. So they were like these beautifully like wax crafted sculptures, and you would remove pretty much the entire like chest panel and see like all their innards and stuff. But when I saw that was just because it was so like ethereal looking, and then obviously so disturbing. But yeah, it was just
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it was such a great amazing. Like, it was beautiful in the most like disgusting way, obviously, but
yeah. I thought it was so interesting too how like when we first meet her, she's like living in this crappy apartment and her life is just sad and it's such a struggle. And then when she becomes like the rock star of body modification, she just becomes so just like confident and like do not come in here if you don't want something serious. Like, you're wasting my time. Like,
you're wasting my time.
She acquired like the strip club male owner's like bodyguard, and now he works for her. And like people loved their
relationship so much.
Yeah. Brings her a milkshake.
I love their relationship so much. Like, I love that he's like, never apologize for what you do. Like, you are that bitch, and I am here for you, friend. And it was always like there was never that line with him, not at all. Like, because the guy who runs the club obviously is infatuated with her.
Hated that guy.
Oh God, he's the worst.
Why is she into him?
I know, that was so confusing to me.
Yeah, but the bodyguard guy, solid guy, good guy.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, just the characters. Oh my gosh, I loved that it kind of went that direction. Not what I was expecting. I was just expecting full on murder, but the body mod thing I thought was like a super cool like segue into just something really different, you know?
Yeah, I had never seen anything like that before.
The only thing that I can think of that has that I've seen. It's this movie with Dennis Quaid, and I'm trying to remember what it's called now. I think it's called The Horseman.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And at the end, and I mean, like, quote, body mods, but just, I think they did the suspension thing, like, to a T in that movie, and it was very much seen as, like, this,
There's
like,
a lot of
thing.
that kind of imagery, but taken to, like, a higher level in Hannibal, the TV show.
Oh,
also.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Where they
really
do
cool.
lots of really disturbing things to people's bodies, but they turn it into art, and it's like, wow.
That's dope.
Yeah.
I was kind of let down. I wanted whatever, like, I know that sounds really ridiculous, but because when the twins came in and they were like, oh, we want to get our arms switched out, I was like, that's cool and bizarre. Okay, let's pretend that's easy. And then they were like, ooh, and we want this. And it's like the blueprint. And she looks at it and you're like, man, I wonder what's on that piece of paper. And then you see it and you're like, oh, what's it?
And then you don't get to see the actual transformation.
No.
Yeah.
Because, like, I'm like,
Yeah, I have to say,
some
I
dermals
don't
aren't crazy to me, but that also could just be me.
I don't really love that whole scene. Like, I'm like, great, Saskas, I'm glad you're in it, but like, I don't understand why you're in this movie. Like,
Sure.
I didn't really need that little subplot. Maybe it was just like to get another
Just to be a
surgery
client.
scene of her.
Yeah. I do wish there was more of that. I do wish that there was more body mod stuff, like more intense body mod stuff, as opposed to just her torturing him, which was terrifying, especially when juxtaposed with like the little that you did see of her actually doing the surgeries. His mouth being sewn shut really messed me up.
Oh yeah. Ugh. And they said that part of the reason they wrote this story the way they did is to just sort of acknowledge the grossness that they have experienced in the film industry, especially as attractive twins. And they're pretty young too. Like when they made this movie, they were late 20s, early 30s, maybe even a little younger. But so, you know, I don't know that I don't think that story is like highly autobiographical, but they said, you know, we've interacted with a lot of people who at first seem nice and then end up being real sleazy.
So apparently when they were trying to make this movie, nobody would fund it. Like they had a really hard time getting funding after people read the script. And after like years of trying, I guess their parents like refinanced or took out a second mortgage or something, and they like funded their kid's project.
Yep.
That eventually made it. But yeah, they couldn't find a studio that would like back them for it, which was bananas.
Yeah, because they were like, this is weird. And they had only done, I think, one movie before. And that movie is called
Hooker in a Trunk.
Yep, Dead Hooker in a Trunk. Which I still have not seen that one, but like I think it was basically like them and their friends and a couple of video cameras. Like they both starred in it and everything. Yeah. So they had never done anything like really like professional before. So people just were not willing to take a chance. But
apparently Eli Roth had seen Dead Hooker in a Trunk and took an interest in them and kind of like helped them or was a part of the project whenever they made American Mary, which is, I have a weird question. Why is it called American Mary? Why is it not called Bloody Mary?
Yeah.
I have always wondered the same thing.
I'm so
they
curious.
They refer to her as Bloody Mary.
I thought surely her internet name is American Mary. No.
And like they're Canadian. It's filmed in Canada. Catherine Isabel is Canadian.
It's Canadian, yeah.
So I don't know. Here's my theory. I think it's because like she's trying to like do everything she can to do everything right and achieve the American dream.
Maybe.
And then like everything turns dark and she has to like forge her way forward, you know, to make her own dream come true. Like that's the only way I can think of.
Is this setting, is it based in like, do they make reference to America specifically in the film or do they ever really like allude? Yeah. So
no, I mean, it's just a generic city. It could be any big city, you know.
Bananas.
You know what?
Yeah.
It's very, the only, like, I thought, like, I was like, okay, it's coming. You know, like, when they end up saying, like, the movie title in the movie, you're like, oh, there it was. Like, I was waiting for that moment.
I thought it was going to be the internet moment.
I thought it was going to be when the strip club owner was fantasizing about her, and you see her, like, on stage, and she is in front of a bunch of stars, and then she's, like, very, you know, she's obviously, like, very pale, and then she pours that, like, blood, like, looking fluid on her.
That was so
scene.
Red,
yeah,
white,
that
blue.
was so cool.
Yeah, American Mary. Nope.
Huh. Nope.
Who knows? That's a question for them. It's like, hey, ladies, if I ever meet you again, I'm going to be like, why American Mary.
Yeah,
My
I
American
actually.
Mary.
On
I
a
had a-
side note, I have just been waiting for them to do another original project. I'm pretty sure everything they've made since then has been like a sequel or a remake or something.
Yeah,
And I just feel like their talent is being
they're due.
squandered.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
I want to see this again because clearly they have an amazing visual style. I'm like, come on, girls. Like, maybe, I don't know, maybe like they have some great stories and they can't get funding. I don't know. But like, I'm really, really like aching to see another original Soska Sisters movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
Here for it.
I read that in their original one for the Dead Hooker in a Trunk. First of all, they couldn't get much view time because of the name, which I find super ironic, given that it's like two women who are producing. So, and I also read that whenever they like, obviously they didn't get much support, and I think they actually attended film school just so they could actually produce a film.
Yep.
And I want to say that, yeah, like you were referencing, Nicole, they ended up being just chased out by like all of these pretentious assholes who, were kind of trying to dictate, how this film should look and what it should be about. And I want to say that they ended up maxing out their credit cards just to produce a trailer. I heard that that's how it was produced. They maxed out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And their dad was the guest surgeon that operated next to Mary.
Yes.
That was their dad, I found out. Yeah.
Yep.
So
That's
everybody's
cute.
involved. Yeah, right?
The German guy.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, all right, guys. So, per usual, this has been a really fun discussion. And, you just can't say enough in an hour and a half. Like, we have only scratched the surface of this particular topic. So there are a lot more films and characters out there to explore, but I hope that we have given all of our lovely listeners some interesting things to think about and some new stuff to watch. So, ladies, before we head out, it's your plug time. Talk about anything interesting you've been watching, what projects you have going on. It's your time to shine. Natalie, hit us up.
I have been watching a lot of Joe Bob's Last Drive-In on Shudder. He's like a horror host who's joined by his wonderful male girl, and they go through a bunch of movies, like rewatch movies, and then cut out every like 30 or 40 minutes to give a fun facts about the movie. And it's extremely enjoyable. He's very Texan. Hard recommend on that. And then I have my art page, Luna the Spook. It's an art Instagram. It's also an Etsy. But I make really fun prints. I've been actually making a lot of hearts for like lovey-dovey season, but they're actually of Ricardio from Adventure Time, so I might put those up. I think they're really funny.
Yeah, buy a print, folks. Buy a print.
And lots of wonderful, spooky, kooky art. So
love it. Sunny, what you got for us?
Ladies, I've actually been lying pretty low these days. My personal life and my work life has been kind of crazy. So I've actually just been trying to make more art for myself on the side. I actually have a vacation coming up next week, and guess what I'm going to do? Make art. So
love it.
I'm just going to basically take all these recommendations and fill my time with crazy movies and podcasts and all that good stuff. But if you want to check out my art in the meantime, Nicole, I know I'm tagged in a lot of your posts on Light and Shadow Instagram, but my name on Instagram is Arrows and Arrows.
And what about Witch of Lakeland? Is that still rolling?
I would, it is, but I'm at a stopping point only because, true crime is much trickier than
it's hard.
Some of this other stuff that's like kind of been established. There's practically essays written about, half of the films that we talk about. But when you're searching for actual facts, it's a lot harder.
I can imagine,
especially something that doesn't or hasn't really gained much attention. That you're trying to bring light to. So basically, I need to find people who are around for all of this in Lakeland at the time, and talk to them. But we'll see what happens.
Well, keep fighting the good fight, because whether it takes you a year or 5 years or 10 years or whatever, I think this story is going to be great and really cool. So I would just encourage you to keep plugging away on that thing. So one thing that I wanted to mention that I've been watching, that it's something I've watched before, but I wanted to bring it up because it's relevant to some new news, and that is the documentary on Shudder, Horror Noir. It's been out for a couple of years, so, a lot of hardcore horror fans have already seen it, but I know that I think last year released like an uncut version of it where it's longer, but it is the Black history of horror, and it's based on a book that was written by a Black female. Her name is Dr. Robin R. Means Coleman, very smart and artistic woman, and it was produced by two other Black women, Tanana Reeve Dew and Leisha Wessel. So it's Black horror, it's female horror, and it's perfect for this month because it's Women in Horror Month and it's Black History Month. Yeah.
Bring it on.
It's just a big love fest for both. So if you have not seen Horror Noir, check it out. And there's also just lots of great Black horror on Shudder. Just explore that. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on our third annual Women in Horror episode. It's been another great month of recognition and discussion for our people. And I hope all you listeners out there will continue to recognize and celebrate women in the genre, both now and all year long. Later, weirdos.
Thanks for tuning in. You can find the show on Instagram and Facebook at Light and Shadow Pod. Sign up to become a supporter on Patreon for early access to all episodes and more. Please rate, review, and subscribe to help other people find the show. Until next time, stay spooky.